Independence of India was accompanied by the curse of partition. Out of many ill effects of the partition, refugee crisis was one of them. When Home Ministry was busy with integrating princely states, refugee crisis was emerging on the border areas. Let us first discuss the background of this. On 20th February 1947, the Labour government in London announced that the British would quit India by the June 1948 and that the Viceroy Lord Wavell would be replaced. On 22nd March, the new Viceroy, Lord Mountbatten, assumed the office. Over few weeks, he discussed the terms of independence with all relevant parties in India. Gandhi made a last attempt to save unity by asking Jinnah to head the first government of Free India. But this offer did not have the backing of Congress, and Jinnah did not accept the offer in any case. On 2nd May, the Viceroy's Chief of Staff, Lord Ismay, was sent to London with a plan for partition. He obtained the cabinet approval, but the plan had to be redrafted several times on his return. On 3rd June, Lord Mountbatten, back from London, announced the partition plan on All India Radio. For the first time, he suggested that the British would leave not by June 1948 but by the middle of August 1947, that is, in less than 10 weeks. The task of partitioning Bengal and the Punjab was entrusted to a British judge named Sir Cyril Radcliffe. He had no prior knowledge of India, which was interpreted by some as an advantage that he would be unbiased. He was given only 5 weeks to decide upon the lines he would draw in the both east and west with the maps at his disposal, which were out of date, and census figures, which were almost certainly incorrect. The boundary award was finally announced on 16th August 1947. This enraged all the communities. Muslims thought that the Gurdaspur district should have gone to the Pakistan instead of India, while Sikhs lost their holy places in an Islamic state. On both sides of the border, the brutalities escalated, and then started one of the biggest exodus in the history of mankind. Riots were going on in both the countries with the influx of refugees. Those who could escape over the border and seek refuge on the other side were contributing to the cycle of retribution and revenge. Let us now first discuss the refugees coming from the West Punjab. Hindus and Sikhs on the west of the Radcliffe border started migrating to the East Punjab after the partition line was declared. There were nearly 200 refugee camps set up for them. The largest camp was at Kurukshetra, the ancient city northwest of the Delhi. Many of the Hindus and Sikhs fleeing from West Punjab were directed by the government of India to a refugee camp in Kurukshetra. A vast city of tents had grown up on the plains to house the waves of migrants, sometimes up to 20,000 per day. The camp was initially planned for 1 lakh refugees, but it came to accommodate 3 times that number. An American observer wrote that the army worked miracles to keep the tents rising ahead of the last refugees. The new inhabitants of Kurukshetra consumed 100 tons of flour daily, along with large quantities of salt, rice, lentils, sugar, and cooking oil, all provided for free by the government of India. Helping the state in their effort was a network of Indian and foreign social workers called the United Council for Relief and Welfare. The bulk of the migrants from West Punjab were farmers, but there were also many who were artisans, traders, and laborers. To accommodate them, the government built brand new township in Faridabad, which was 32 kilometers south of Delhi. These were mostly Hindu refugees from the northwest frontier provinces. Almost 5 lakh refugees came to settle in Delhi itself after the partition. They flooded the city, spreading themselves out wherever they could. They thronged in camps, schools, colleges, temples, gurudwaras, dharmashalas, military barracks, and gardens. They squatted on railway platforms, streets, pavements, and every conceivable place. In time, These squatters built houses on the land allotted to them. By July 1948, there were 5 lakh refugees in Bombay city, which mostly arrived from the Sindh, Punjab, and the frontier provinces. This intensified city's most acute problem of the housing shortage. Almost 1 lakh people were sleeping on the pavements. Slums were growing apace. In crowded tenements, people lived 15 or 20 in a one room. There were 5 refugee camps in Bombay. The Kolwada camp had 10,400 people living in the barracks. The average space allotted to each family was 36 square feet. There were only 12 water taps in the entire camp, no doctors, only one school, and no electricity. This gives an idea of the intensity of the refugee crisis. This greatest mass migration in the history also commenced the biggest land resettlement operation in the world. There was disproportion in the land left by the refugees in West Punjab and East Punjab. This disproportion was not only with respect to the quantity but also quality. As against 27 lakh hectares abandoned by Hindus and Sikhs in West Punjab, there was only 19 lakh hectares left behind by Muslims in East Punjab. The shortfall was made more acute by the fact that the areas in the west of the province had a richer soil and were more abundantly irrigated. Back in the late 19th century, hundreds of Sikh villages had migrated to the west to cultivate land in the newly created canal colonies. There they had made the desert to flourish. But one fine day in 1947, they were told that their garden now lay in Pakistan. So, in bare 2 generations, these dispossessed Sikhs found themselves back in their original homes. To begin with, each family of the refugee was given an allotment of 4 hectares, regardless of its holdings in Pakistan. Loans were advanced to buy seeds and equipment. Sardar Tarlok Singh of the Indian Civil Services was leading this operation of rehabilitation. He was accompanied by 7,000 officials. While cultivation commenced on these temporary plots, applications were invited for permanent allotments. Each family was asked to submit evidence of how much land it had left behind. Within months, more than 5 lakh applications were filled. To collect, collate, verify, and act upon the claims, a rehabilitation secretariat was set up in Jalandhar. Sardar Tarlok Singh introduced 2 innovative ideas which proved critical in the successful settlement of refugees: the standard acre and the graded cut. A standard acre was defined as that amount of land which could yield 400 kilograms of rice. In the dry unirrigated districts of East, 4 physical acres comprised one standard acre, whereas in the lush canal colonies a real acre of land more or less equaled its standard counterpart. While the concept of standard acre took care of the variations in soil and climate across the province, the idea of graded cut helped to overcome the gap between the land left behind by the refugees and the land available. For first 10 acres, a cut of 25% was implemented. For higher claims, the cuts were steeper. People having more than 500 acres were taxed at 95%. The biggest single loser was a lady named Vidyavati. She got 835 acres in return of 11,500 acres left behind. By November 1949, Tarlok Singh had made 2,50,000 land allotments. These refugees were then distributed equitably across the districts of East Punjab. Neighbors and families were resettled together, although the recreation of entire village communities proved impossible. Refugees were invited to protest against their allotments. Close to 1 lakh families asked for a review. One third of these objections were acted upon. As a result, 80,000 hectares changed hands once again. This settled the refugee crisis in Punjab peacefully. Now let us discuss about the refugees from East Bengal. Before partition, the more prosperous Hindu families of eastern Bengal had begun moving with their assets to the city of Calcutta. After partition, the immigration was chiefly of working class and farming families. These refugees were chiefly migrating to India's third greatest metropolis, Calcutta. Unlike in Punjab, where the exodus happened in one big rush, in Bengal it was spread out. However, in the winter of 1949-50, there was a wave of communal riots in East Pakistan which forced many more Hindus across the border. In previous years, about 4 lakh refugees came into West Bengal, while in 1950s the number jumped to 17 lakh. Some refugees stayed with relatives, while others made their home on the city's railway stations, where some refugees took possession of the empty houses. Others colonized vacant land along the roads and railway lines, as well as freshly cleared scrub jungles and recently drained marshes. Unlike Punjab, there was no massive migration in the other direction, leaving behind the untended fields and farms for the refugees to be settled in. This complicated the refugee crisis in Bengal and created unrest among the refugees. In September 1948, an All Bengal Refugee Council of Action was formed. Marches and demonstrations were organized demanding that the refugees must be given fair compensation and citizenship rights. By early 1950, there were about 2 lakh refugees in these squatter colonies. They formed their own committees, framed rules for the administration of the colonies, and organized themselves into a vast united body. They constructed roads and also started schools. Thus, resettlement process in Bengal was much more painful than that in Punjab. Let us now come to the other crisis during this period. The refugee crisis was compounded by the serious shortages of food. After the end of the World War II, imports of grain were steadily on the rise, increasing from 8 lakh tons in 1942 to 28 lakh tons 4 years later. The following year, the rains failed in the western province of Gujarat, leading to acute water and fodder scarcity. Wells and river beds ran dry, and cattle and goats died of hunger and disease. In some places, farmers were starving, while in other places they were restive. In uncertainty following the Indian takeover of Hyderabad, communists moved swiftly to assume the control of the Telangana region. This forced India to put its strength in that region to root out communist menace. This added stress to Indian administration and military while handling the refugee crisis. Let us turn to what India achieved. India successfully rehabilitated around 80 lakh refugees within 3 years. While some British thought that India will need British officials after its independence, India proved it wrong. Entire rehabilitation was successfully carried out by Indian officials. While resettling the land, India had gracefully handled the discrepancies in both quality and quantity of the land. This diminished the unrest in the refugees and helped to maintain law and order. In our next video, we will see the linguistic reorganization of the Indian states. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and comment because discussion is solution. For more discussions, please subscribe our channel.